Hello, everybody. Thank you very much. It brings me such joy to see you all here today. We have 11 speakers who are surprisingly cool cucumbers back there. I thought they'd be nervous, but they're just like ready to go. We've got a great lineup for you tonight. Our speakers have been rehearsing for months, and they're very eager to share the stories that they've been working on. But before I do that, how many of you here are part of Admitted Students Day? You want to be part of a university that does this kind of cool stuff, right? So anyway, let me introduce myself first. My name is Mia Tuan, and during the day, I serve as the proud dean of the College of Education here at the University of Washington. But for tonight, I'm your MC for the event. Okay, so let's get our show started. Please join me now in doing an acknowledgement of the land upon which we are standing. We are on the traditional land of the Coast Salish people, which touches the shared waters of all tribes and bands within the Suquamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot nations. And we honor with gratitude the land and our ongoing commitments to its people. The University of Washington and the College of Education take our responsibilities to tribal communities in this state and in the nation very seriously, and I'm very grateful to be on these lands. Okay. So my job is to set up the evening for you so that you know what's about to happen. And so on that note, let me share a little bit about the inspiration for EduTalks. 10 years ago, I stepped into my role as dean, and I had the privilege of meeting one-on-one with every single faculty member in the college. And I was so just struck by the passion that every person shared and spoke when they talked about the work that matters to them. I had had experience at my prior institution putting on a TEDx, and this kind of idea started just to bubble in my head that, we could do something like this, right? We could put on our version of a TEDx, and it would be a great way to kind of bring our community together, but also an easy party to invite other people to come to. So thus was born EduTalks. Our format, though, is a little bit different from TED Talks. We do have our rug, which usually lives in my house with my cats during the other days of the year, right? But rather than 20-minute talks or however long TED Talks go, we thought, let's make it 5 minutes. And let's make it 5 minutes and one image to help set the scene for their talks. 5 minutes is hard to boil down something that you care very deeply about. And so that's the challenge that our speakers are coming to you to accomplish tonight. Every year we have a theme, and somebody was asking me in the back, like, what number EduTalk is this? And I honestly don't know. I think it's number 12. You'd think we'd do a better job keeping track of this, but we've been doing them ever since 2015 when I first came in, 2016 when I came in, and they've just been a great hit and a joy to put on. There was a little break during the pandemic, as you can imagine, but last year we kind of started them up again, and I think this is something that we're going to be doing forever, especially paired with Admitted Students Day. So our theme this year is Unleashing Creativity, which I think you can all agree with me, we need a lot of that right now. These are incredibly challenging, targeted, unkind times. What we need is a little bit more creativity, a little more love out there. And so we asked each speaker to come up with a 5-minute talk about what matters to them that is linked to this theme of unleashing creativity. Okay, I've got 3 requests for you before we start the show. The first is to please be kind to our speakers. They've been practicing. They've been rehearsing. We were here the other night and someone was going like 7 minutes and 30 seconds and just like, I gotta trim. These are not, they're not professional speakers. They are scholars, researchers, director, community leaders. They're everything but professional speaker on a big bright stage like this, which I have to tell you, it really does feel like a deer in headlights. Okay? So please be kind to them. They're doing their best. And if there's a little flub or something, just cheer them on, give them that love so that they know that you're rooting for them. Okay? The second request is to lean into their talks, right? Our goal here is to generate conversation, conversations that matter, unleashing our own creativity. Think about it that way, right? So pay attention to those talks that really draw you in, and think about what you would want to talk to the speaker about that came up in listening to them. And then the third request is really easy. Show them the highest compliment during the reception by going up to them and asking them your question, or whatever comment, whatever thing that got triggered for you in listening to them. Because then they'll know you heard them and that there was a connection and that you're gonna be having a conversation, okay? So those are my 3 requests. Speaking about reception, we have a great one for you, and it's gonna be catered by That Brown Girl Cooks, right outside in the reception right afterwards. So I'll tell you, the talks go quick. It's 5 minutes times 10 talks. In the blink of an eye, we'll be done. But that's just the first part of tonight, right? The bigger part is what happens in the reception area when you're having those conversations, when you're buzzing with creativity that you've been inspired by our speakers tonight, okay? So enjoy the show. We're gonna get started in a moment. Thank you for coming. So now please join me in welcoming Kathleen Meeker, whose talk is titled Creativity as Resistance.
Thank you. Who's ever needed to find a public restroom? We all have. And most of us are familiar with the limited numbers of ways public restrooms are signaled. The gendered block figures, maybe an outline of a toilet. These are usually pretty utilitarian. We know we need restrooms in buildings. We know we need signs. But sometimes our everyday requirements can unleash creativity. Like we see in this sign at Seattle's Pike Place Market. Additional standard signs make sure everyone can find what they need when they need it. But someone took a bit of extra time to add a bit of whimsy and a bit of humor to an everyday requirement. Something about this sign spoke to me as a special educator. Like public signage, special education can start to feel governed by rules and policies and procedures. It can feel detached from the humans that it's designed to serve and uplift. And in our times, it can feel even worse. It can feel like the policies governing public education and special education are changing in ways we can't predict and we don't all agree with. Teachers and families can feel lost or constrained by the very things that are meant to ensure an outstanding education for their child. Now, more than ever, I see creativity as resistance. How do we unleash creativity from within systems that aren't working for kids? I work at a place called the Herring Center for Inclusive Education. Since 1966, we've been unleashing creativity to change the way communities think about youth with disabilities. In fact, in 1966, schools didn't serve children with disabilities. Schools could and did reject children with disabilities, and parents were pressured to send their children to state institutions, often as babies. Families right here in Washington and at the Herring Center said no. Parents started classes for their kids, and they learned to talk to state legislators. And when legislators tried to leave them out, they sat on the floor. As a result of their efforts, Washington's Education for All Act in 1971 paved the way for what is now the Federal Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, the law that guarantees all children a free, appropriate public education. Creativity meant seeing a problem, seeing a solution, and seeing it through. Nearly 30 years later, our recently retired director, Eileen Schwartz, and her colleagues at the Herring Center leveraged their creativity to change education for children with autism. At the time, in the mid-1990s, education for young children with autism was one-on-one, in homes, and very adult-directed. Dr. Schwartz's program, called Project Data, brought autism services into play-based classrooms with other young children. As the prevalence of autism skyrocketed in the early 2000s, her creativity shifted the national conversation around education for children with autism and made the UW and the Herring Center a destination for inclusive education. And now the Herring Center and our partners continue to resist through creativity. Just last quarter, I took my students, all future teachers, on a trip to the Washington Assistive Technology Assistance Program, housed just steps from the Herring Center in one of our parent organizations, the Institute for Human Development and Disability. There, I saw creative people resisting the barriers that isolate disabled children and adults. I saw a 3D printed table of elements, with each element represented by its atomic mass, so that a blind high school student could feel the concept with their hands. I saw a dog treat dispenser that was designed by a disabled veteran who needed a quick way to deliver training treats to his service dog without using his hands. I saw iPads and talking pens ready to help nonverbal preschool children use their voices through technology. At the Herring Center, we believe inclusion means everyone belongs and everyone gets what they need. We believe that diversity of thoughts, ideas, and backgrounds makes communities stronger. We believe that equity is a noble and important priority to guide decisions. And we believe that accessibility makes the world better for everyone. Seeing oppression, wrongdoing, unfairness, especially when sanctioned by power, always requires a bravery that can only be bolstered by clear, creative vision of what's right and what's possible. So our times, like many others before us, require a special kind of creativity, a creativity that chooses to resist, a creativity that chooses beauty, human connection, problem solving, and sometimes humor as the tools we'll use to resist. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Gregory Davis. Stories to Success, the creative power of anecdotes in performance.
It was 6:30 in the morning in the winter, and it was cold, and it was dark, but it wasn't too dark that I couldn't see the paper in the middle of my neighbor's yard. All of a sudden, they came out of the door. Cold, they were in their robe, iron, clutching their arms, with fluffy house shoes on, visibly annoyed. And as they walked to the paper, they said to me, they threw the paper in the middle of my yard again. They bent down to pick up the paper and walked back in the house. Clearly, this was a case of expectations that were different from the paper deliverer and the neighbor. And this sparked some thinking. This sparked my imagination to think about evaluations, expectations, and performance. And I know, you say, no, where is that coming from? Well, I come by it honestly because I had just completed 12 annual performance reviews a couple of weeks before. So what I want to do is show you how I create anecdotes, tell you how you can create anecdotes, and say why creating the creative use of anecdotes can create performance and help with expectations. After 35 years as a community organizer in the central area in the 90s, in Rainier Valley in the 2000s, nationally 2010s, and in the 2020s in Rainier Beach, I have interacted with youth, adults, young adults, our elders. I've worked with people from entry level to the C-suites and many, many cultures. And one of the things that's common is all of them responded to stories and anecdotes. The key is visualization. I've studied Proverbs and used those. I've studied parables. I've studied the Psalms to use those to help create visualizations and to support expectations. And what I found was 3 ingredients. 1 is the use of the 5 senses. 2 is life's daily activities. And 3 is the use of cognitive framework. I'm going to talk about that in just a little bit. So whether it's teams or classes or work groups, whether it's in your classroom or at work, is usually not the person's effort or ability. It's usually a difference in expectations, a misalignment or a mismatch in expectations. So I would say the creative use of anecdotes will help with the expectations. Now I know we all get frustrated when our work with children or our siblings or coworkers or students is unsuccessful in helping them improve. But to help them do that is the creation of visualization as it relates to their work. And you remember the story of the neighbor and the paper deliverer. The success is the anecdotes and the use of visualization to help with the improvement. An example of this is I shared this story about the neighbor and the paper deliverer with my staff, but I added a visualization to it. And I said that the paper deliverer's expectation was here, and the neighbor's expectation was here. Sometimes I fortuitously use that when I talk to staff. And I said, is your grasp of our mission here, or is it here? And I've learned to now use that in our annual performance reviews. So the three ingredients, life's basic activity. Mine was walking. You can use cooking, you can use gardening, you can use any number of other basic life activities. The use of the 5 senses, taste, smell, hearing, sound, I used that. I was walking. One of the things I didn't mention is I smelled the bacon from the neighbor's yard as they were coming out. I saw the newspaper and I felt the cold. So the use of the senses really helped with the creation of creative anecdotes. When it comes to cognitive skills, the framework, this is actually for the learner or for the teacher, or the student or the coworker. And what it does, it allows them to take their thinking from a knowledge level to an understanding level. And it doesn't stop there. It allows them to take their understanding to a level of analysis and a level of synthesis. That's actually my genius. So the stories of our lives, whether they are family settings, friends settings, classroom settings, or work settings, are the ones that are remembered most to support the lessons learned. I can't wait to tell you about how I spun an anecdote out of an owl attack that allowed me to see the world in a whole new way. Thank you.
Join me now in welcoming Ben Danielson, who will be talking about learning to unlearn, unlearning to learn.
Clearly, I needed a new headshot. I'm going to talk a little bit today about the idea of how unlearning can really unlock creativity in your life. I think about my life, and I think back to my childhood. I think about Twice as Good. When I was a kid growing up in Washington, D.C., I was misbehaving, a lot. I was misbehaving a lot. And what I had were I would call aunties or neighborhood moms who were sitting on the stoops in my neighborhood watching me run around, cause trouble, looking at me, keeping an eye on me. And there were people who cared enough to try to give me some of their most important heartfelt advice. One day, one of them called me over to their stoop and started talking to me about how I was starting to grow up. I was about 11. She told me I was changing in people's eyes. From being a little cute little black boy to being what society would consider a scary black man. She went on to teach me about the importance of being twice as good. That as a black man in this world, I would have to be twice as good, work twice as hard, perform twice as well, y'all, with twice as much composure in order to get as far as others. The society was just waiting for me to trip up, to mess up, to act out, to make a mistake. So I had to be twice as good. I came to embrace this advice. I worked harder than others, twice as hard. I strove to be twice as articulate, twice as composed, twice as prepared, twice as good. I adopted the twice as good approach as a fundamental learning. I thought it was integral to who I was. Now, we're all, in one way or some other, accumulations of learnings that inform who we are and how we move in the world. But I would say if we hope to keep growing and learning, keep adapting to new circumstances, then we must make ourselves available to new ideas, to creative ideas in our lives. And we must be able to unlearn the lessons that no longer serve us. We must know what learnings to keep and what learnings to let go of. So today I'm making the case for you that you should devote yourself to learning how to unlearn. In my time as a physician, in my lifetime as a human, in being a Black man, I've come to deeply value the practice of unlearning. As a physician, even as I absorbed all the knowledge that medical training had to offer, I eventually had to unlearn the idea that physicians have all the answers. In my lifetime, I've done the work to unlearn lessons like you can change people's minds by providing them with enough information. Or that facts win arguments. As a Black man, I've had to unlearn twice as good because it's ultimately a trap. It denies you the opportunity for creativity. It denies you the ability to care for yourself. It feeds imposter syndrome. It denies the basic right to be angry. Being willing to unlearn can be hard, especially when learning has come from somebody that you regard highly, like those aunties. For instance, one of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous and frequently quoted learnings is that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. This sounds compelling. It sounds good. It sounds comforting. It sounds righteous. It sounds right. The problem is that it promotes passivity, makes you think you can just wait. And whatever terrible things are going on, they will go away on their own without you doing a thing. It's hard to question a learning from someone as iconic, as amazing as MLK. Yet when I think about it, I realize that Dr. King himself chose to unlearn that one and came to repeatedly disdain the inaction of good people, disdain them even more than the actions of bad people. It's important to take time to pause, periodically, reassess the learnings you've historically called the things that you know. It's important to listen to a range of views, to take in the best compilation of wisdom and knowledge available to you right now, and to consider if a past learning is relevant or useful to you today. This kind of learning hygiene is especially important when the institutions around us are under attack, to help us reaffirm the learnings we commit to hold on to. Some learnings are reaffirmed and retained. For me, they're things like equity work is not profane. Equity work is core to humanity. Learnings like protecting reproductive health care rights is a societal imperative. Learnings like we should not deport people because they protest injustice or because they have tattoos. Today I reaffirm those learnings. And there are some learnings that may merit unlearning, like our two-party, money-poisoned electoral system works well. Or like I can just sit idly by because the arc of the moral universe, blah, blah, blah. Learning to unlearn takes intention and practice, and it helps prevent you from being driven by fear or uncertainty. You each hold an incredible power to reflect, reassess, to reaffirm, to let go, to unlearn, all in the service of continuing to grow on this amazing journey called life. I'm learning to unlearn the twice as good, and all the imposter syndrome and forced stoicism that comes with that mantra. Maybe you have a thing you've learned, a thing you embraced at one point, an aphorism, a credo, a mantra of your own that it's time to question, that may be worthy of unlearning. Taking time to unlearn is so important, it's worth cultivating. It's part of the roots of creativity. It's how you unlock your brain and your heart. It's a kind of pruning that helps you remove unhealthy branches of knowledge and thought and helps nourish the healthy branches and helps you grow up and become more vigorously creative and part of our society in the ways that you want to be. Unlearning unlocks your creativity, and it makes you bloom even brighter. Thank you.
All right, we have a treat for you. Our next talk is a duet. Min Sun and Haley Spahn. AI.
Haley, I'm curious how teachers think about AI.
Let me tell you, there are some that think that AI will solve all our problems in education, and there are others that may have seen one too many sci-fi movies.
You know, AI is basically math and computer code. It is powerful, but it's not magic, and we need to move beyond the hype and fear.
Absolutely, and once teachers start to use it, they really see it's not scary at all. And I want to bring the audience's attention to our image in the back. This is a vision of a third grader and how AI can be implemented seamlessly into his classroom and already daily routine. As you can see, he imagines his teacher creating a dynamic and personalized group-based environment, and the AI has allowed the teacher's creativity to be unleashed, along with unleashing the creativity of her students.
Today, we will unpack more about how AI can potentially transform K-12 education. Let's start with the striking fact that in the US, teachers spend on average about 21 hours per week on tasks that take them away from their students or behind the desk. Those tasks include individual lesson preparation, grading, and other administrative tasks. Although they are essential for effective teaching, they take away teachers' energy from what they love the most, which is being in front of their students and inspire them.
And as a teacher, I could not agree more. I'm going to bring Min's point to life with my lived experience as a middle school math teacher in Federal Way Public Schools. On top of the 21 hours per week most teachers spend, teachers like myself who serve a very diverse population have to spend 3 or more hours on top of those 21 hours. And that is to not only address the academic instruction, but also diverse language needs and special education accommodations. You might be asking yourself, why not just use ChatGPT or some other general AI model? And that's a great question because when AI first came about, that's what a lot of teachers and parents did. However, there are issues with general AI models. They don't know what best teaching practices are. They don't know our pedagogy, they don't know student learning progressions, and there's a lot of issues with security measures and privacy policies. And that's where academic, really personalized AI models like Colleague AI come into play.
Colleague AI is a startup spin-off from our College of Education. Yay! It is a comprehensive education technology platform where our AI agents serve as knowledgeable colleagues for educators and friendly buddies for students. We bring several innovations to K-12 education. First, we embed effective teaching and learning theories into the latest AI technology. Our AI agents understand the concept such as instructional rigor, mastery-based grading, and other learning theories that really unleash both teachers and students' creativity. Second, Colleague AI built ground up with and for teachers and their students. Teachers and students, our end users, are part of the co-designers with researchers, with our engineers. Last but not least, we built a robust supporting system for both educators and school leaders, including technical support and AI-based training, because we recognize that AI technology itself will not transform education. Rather, we humans make possibilities become learning opportunities for all students. As of today, we have over 12,000 users, and we actively work with the school district across the country.
Okay, this is my favorite part. In my district, we do the iReady diagnostic. At the beginning of the year, it gives students a student growth goal for the year. End of the year, 100%. You follow me so far? Okay, 50% is January because that's halfway through the school year. Before AI existed, my students would average 73% halfway through the school year. However, after implementing both the teacher and student-facing version of Colleague AI, my students made 108% growth halfway through the school year. They surpassed their yearly growth goal by January. Not only that, but my student that uses the student-facing version the most during our independent practice made 315% growth. He grew from a 4th grade level to 6th grade. And for reference, for the past 2 school years, he's made 0% growth. And the reason for this is because the function of his behavior is avoidance. He doesn't want to let you know what he knows and what he doesn't know because that requires a lot of vulnerability, and that's scary. However, when he's chatting with AI, there's no human there to perceive him. He can show his misconceptions. He can ask for clarification a 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, as many times as he wants to. And because of the personalized instruction he received in independent practice through Colleague AI, he's made tremendous growth in math and feels confident in math for the first time ever.
So the key takeaway here is that AI can potentially transform K-12 education. In this superhero story, AI is not the Batman. It's not the one who replaced teachers. Rather, AI is always the sidekick, empowering teachers to be even more effective at what they do the best, inspiring the next generation of learners. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Joe Lott, Reimagining Civic Engagement for Young Men of Color.
How y'all doing this evening? I have a question for you. What if we truly embrace the creativity of young men of color in social design? We are at an all-hands-on-deck moment, seemingly, in this country, where our rights feel like they're threatened. Our right to vote, our right to due process, our right to freely express ourselves. Now more than ever, we have to be more intentional about bringing young men of color into the social design space. My goal as a researcher is to design safe and effective spaces for young men of color so they could bring in their lived experience in the social design space. One of the challenges is that men of color often aren't asked to be involved in social change, and traditional campus spaces don't accommodate their authentic selves. We aim to change that with the Brotherhood Initiative, which I founded over 10 years ago. It was designed because we realized that a lot of young men of color are in educational environments that weren't designed for them. So we leverage high-impact practices such as leadership, research opportunities to increase their chances of success. We also focus on increasing their civic mindedness and expose them to different ways that people have engaged in social change, particularly from a community-based perspective. We realize that sometimes their potential is inhibited by being in a large, predominantly white institution where they might face cultural isolation, racial bias, a lack of supportive networks. And one way to truly unlock their potential is to have them engaged in social change projects. So about 4 years ago, we started the Positive Social Change Challenge with the Brotherhood Initiative. And it was to merge entrepreneurship and social change. We initially wanted to solve the racial wealth gap by teaching students entrepreneurship, but a student's desire to solve homelessness led us to create a social change lab. So the Social Change Challenge is for our second-year students in the BI. It's a year-long class where they have to work with community-based organizations and members to first understand what complex social problems are that face communities and design with the community so it can be a sort of collaborative and impactful approach. Ethical social design is also a part of what we do, and it privileges equity, justice, and the well-being of marginalized communities, and we take that very seriously in the Brotherhood Initiative. There have been some amazing projects that have come out of the Social Change Challenge. The Digital Tether project, led by students from immigrant backgrounds, was designed to promote digital literacy among immigrants. The issue was when some of our students' family members came to the US, sometimes they didn't know how to access the internet. And when they did, some bogus websites came up. So you know what these students did? They designed and developed a Google Chrome extension to filter out bogus websites. Other exciting projects that come out of there to address food sovereignty in Native communities. We're trying to prevent forest fires, promoting healthy attitudes towards mental illness. I mean, it's a range. It's been over 4 years of these projects. The impact on students have been profound. They have a deeper understanding of social issues. They're deeply connected in the community by working with folks. And some have even shifted their career and academic aspirations to be involved in social change. So it's truly been exciting. So I want to take this time and invite you to come work with us and open up the design space for social change for our students in the Brotherhood Initiative. You can introduce us to community networks or people who might want to learn and work with our students. Your financial contribution can support student projects. That's right, we need money and innovation. You can do that. But now is the time that we have to be more intentional about engaging young folks, particularly young men of color who have been historically left out of the social change process. We are doing that in the Brotherhood Initiative, and I invite you to come work with us. Thank you.
All right, join me in welcoming Nick Terrones, whose talk is titled A Place to Be.
Haku, Maktuka Nick Terrones, Alapa Lapu Nichu Mashino. Greetings, everybody. My name is Nick Terrones, and I've greeted you in the Somali dialect of my people, the Chumash, of what is now known as Southern California. I've been an early childhood educator for about a little over 18 years now, and 14 and a half of those working with toddlers, primarily with toddlers. Toddlers are my people. And to quote Dr. Darius Phelps, toddlers are my colleagues. And it's funny because I remember having a conversation with a preschooler one day about these, supposed jobs that adults go to when they leave their children at school. And it blew their mind when I told them that me being with them was actually my job. And I told them, I loved preschool so much when I was your age, I decided to come back as a grown-up. And if you haven't figured it out already, that's me when I was 2.5 years old, just straight up loving preschool. My mom tells me that I was the child who wasn't ready to leave when it was pickup time. I always had something to finish up. And remembering this feeling and the obvious joy that I had and still have for preschool, it led me to post this photo in my teacher cubby in the classrooms that I worked in, to remind myself, how would I want to have been engaged with at 2.5 years old? How would I have wanted to be spoken to? What would little Nick want to play? And if he had a chance to influence his early learning environments, what would he consider? I now have a very different role and a different kind of job than working and playing with toddlers. I serve as the Director of Community Relations for the Rainier Valley Early Learning Campus, or the RVELC. Yeah. It's a dream in the making through the College of Education here at the University of Washington. And in this new role that I'm blessed to be in, I have a small part in being able to create an early learning center that will also focus on workforce development in early childhood education. And as this project and opportunity unfolds, I find myself asking this question, and I pose it to you all here tonight. What does it mean to truly invest into children, families, and teachers? Well, we're leaning into that question every day as this work unfolds and as we're discovering new problems and new opportunities as they arise. And what we're finding is that it's more than just about creating a physical space for more childcare and preschool opportunities for children to build their school readiness skills. It's actually about creating a space where a community's strengths and identities are at the center and at the heart of children's lived experiences. And in my role, I strive to ensure that community voice is not just heard, but that it is centered in this process. And there are a lot of perspectives and a lot of voices that will help shape this project. But I lean into the wisdom of the early learning community here in Seattle, and more importantly, I lean into the wisdom and the guidance of community members of the Rainier Valley and the Mount Baker neighborhood. The RVELC, it embodies the adage that it takes a village to raise a child by bringing city and university resources with the strengths, the identities, and the joys of a community. And it will serve as a lighthouse to call people in to witness what is possible when a city government, a large institution, and communities come together, creatively come together, in service of children and families. But I like to modify that adage just a little bit. It takes a village to raise a child, and that village to grow a teacher. And the RVELC will be that village, where not only children and their families are thriving in a joyful learning environment, but where their teachers, future teachers, and teachers from beyond our campus and beyond our city, beyond our state, and hopefully national level, can come and grow professionally through hands-on learning experiences, through mentorship opportunities, and through meaningful training. And here's my personal hope for the RVELC, that it'll be a place to inspire more men of color to enter and stay in the field of early learning. I know that little guy up there would have appreciated seeing that part of his identity reflected in his learning experience. And I'm also hopeful that the RVELC will call back more people to the power and to the joy of early learning, just as I was. Kakinas, thank you.
All right, our next speaker is Marissa Pilger-Suhr, Unlocking the Hidden Powers of Para-Educators.
Picture this. It's my first job out of college, a para-educator in a middle school classroom in Oakland, California. As a para, I had no formal training or certification, but I was idealistic, I was eager to help kids, and utterly unprepared when the lead teacher in my classroom abruptly left on medical leave. Overnight, I was handed lesson plans, a classroom of students with learning disabilities, and 3 words: you've got this. By June, I had left education entirely, and I wasn't alone. 1 in 5 para-educators leave the field each year. Para-educators are the unsung heroes of K-12 education. 1 million strong, they support teachers with everything from recess duty to small group instruction to one-on-one behavioral supports. But here's the problem. With record teacher shortages, paraeducators are increasingly being thrown into direct service roles, often without the training that they need. Typically, paras enter the field with just a high school degree and a couple of years of college. No certification needed. They often don't have the opportunity to participate in district-wide trainings for effective practices, and they're often supervised by certified teachers who just don't have the time or training to adequately support them. Paraeducators are thrown into the deep end, where they're expected to sink or swim. And they're stressed, disrespected, and underappreciated. But what if we could change this narrative? What if instead of setting paraeducators up to fail, we could instead set them up to thrive as empowered and innovative educators? Right now, I'm working with a district in Colorado that's thinking creatively about how to harness the hidden powers of paraeducators. In this district, we're providing an innovative tutoring model where paraeducators not only provide reading instruction, but they are inspiring students below grade level to reimagine themselves as readers. Paraeducators receive ongoing professional development and coaching across the year from a local coach. And this coach gives them guidance that builds up the knowledge, skills, and confidence on the job, emboldening them to harness their creativity and support students in new and exciting ways. The results of this approach have been remarkable. In just 10 weeks, 20% of students who receive the tutoring model are reading at or above grade level. Administrators and coaches rave about the tutoring model because it provides them with paraeducators who, with the right support, are delivering innovative and evidence-based instruction to those students who need it the most. And they've also seen firsthand how this approach can transform a student's learning trajectory. And to top it off, paraeducators feel that they have the knowledge and tools to actually make a difference in students' lives. Some of them are even going on to become classroom teachers. I want to share a quote that a paraeducator shared with me, which I think best encapsulates her experience. One of the first grade teachers just said it out loud. All of the students reading below grade level, they were now reading at grade level. Everyone said it was really exciting. They were so amazed. But a lot of it had to do with the classroom teacher, but a huge part of it was us, because we were the ones that were teaching them the sounds, how to read the words, and how to do the reading. So I do think it was us, to be honest with you. There are 3 things that I think made this model really work in this Colorado project: prioritizing tutoring, providing the right support, and providing the right resources. First, the district made tutoring a top priority by hiring paraeducators as reading tutors and ensuring that they had adequate time to hone their skills and provide student support. Second, there was a local coach that was trained to provide personalized and hands-on guidance, from everything from lesson modeling to creative problem solving when things weren't going as intended. And third, paraeducators received access to a research-backed reading program that was not only easy to use, but it served as a framework to build on, to allow them to tap into the art of teaching. It turns out when you provide paraeducators with the training and support that they need, they can have enormous impacts on students and the broader school community. I walked away from education once, but the allure of the classroom, the desire to help kids learn, drew me back, as it does so many in education. I decided to pursue a graduate degree in school psychology, where as a novice educator, I had the opportunity to provide small group reading instruction to students as a training experience in our college's reading clinic. Seeing kids' eyes light up as they sounded out words and read sentences and paragraphs for the first time, it felt like pure magic. And then it hit me. I was the one that created that spark. With the right training and support, I was inspiring students to unlock their potential and discover the world of reading. Because when you provide paraeducators with the support and resources they need, magic happens.
It's time for Rashida Love, Manifesting the Sisterhood Initiative.
In early 2021, as the world was falling apart around me, I discovered that I had a superpower. Not mind reading or the gift of flight, but something we were all in need of, the ability to manifest light in darkness. And the best part about it is that I didn't even need a spandex costume. Just a vision board, a belief in the unseen, and the courage to demand it. I was a Black woman in academia writing a dissertation in an uncertain time. We were in the midst of a global pandemic, grieving the loss of Breonna Taylor and watching people across the country protest George Floyd's murder on loop. In that moment, research felt useless and hope felt like a luxury. But on New Year's Eve, I made a radical choice. I dared to dream anyway. Psychologists call this manifestation, the alchemy of turning intention into reality. Every day when I got up, before I turned on the news, before I started writing, and every night before I went to bed, I looked at the board for inspiration, for hope in something that, as far as I knew, didn't even exist. Months later, dissertation defended, a friend sent me a job posting, and there it was. Director for the Sisterhood Initiative. Thank you. A role that I'd invented on my vision board. Almost every detail matched. Change the world. Check. I'd get to teach, advise, and build community with some of the most intelligent young women of color in the country. True to your culture, naturally speaking. Check. Here was a chance to use my degree and show up being unapologetically me. An opportunity to model to young women of color that you can maintain your roots, your values, your style, and still be viewed as intelligent and professional. Magic unfiltered? Absolutely. I was gonna work with future doctors, teachers, lawyers, engineers, our future leaders in a community designed to support their authenticity and encourage them to shine. I know you all also see wealth up there. Maybe I should have been a little bit more specific about that one. But anyways, getting back to the Sisterhood Initiative. This wasn't just my dream. It was what women of color at predominantly white institutions around the country wanted as well. Research about the experiences of women of color undergraduates at predominantly white institutions in the United States indicates that women of color often experience lower levels of belonging, poor mental health, and an increased likelihood of dropping out when compared to their white counterparts. This is due in part to social isolation, lower levels of emotional wellness, and racialized stigma related to who they are as people and their ability to achieve academically. The SI provided the opportunity not only for me to step into a meaningful role, but to answer the call of women of color undergrads from across the country, and specifically at the University of Washington. The Sisterhood Initiative focuses on mental health and belonging through building micro-communities. It amplifies identity and authenticity instead of shying away from it. You can still be you and be professional and intelligent. The two are not mutually exclusive. The SI encourages women of color to use their voices, to take up space, and we work diligently to connect our students to resources and opportunities on and off campus. So, as we find ourselves in another time of uncertainty, remember that we all have the power to manifest light in darkness. How, you may ask? Well, might I suggest supporting the Women in the Sisterhood Initiative. Believing in their ideas before they even take shape, and creating spaces where their dreams can grow. Each of us can play a role in making their success a reality. Thank you.
All right, our next speaker is Bettina Shea, Love at the center of transformation.
This is a pomelo. And in the photo on my daughter's head is also a pomelo. A pomelo with its sweet fruit consumed, transformed into an ornamental headpiece. And a pomelo that connected my daughter through me to her great-grandmother, who left this world 30 years before she would enter it. Growing up with my grandmother, few words were exchanged due to a language barrier. Yet my grandmother always communicated her love for me through the way she prepared me fruit. Love transformed an ordinary, everyday citrus fruit into a sweet treat and a princess crown. And love transformed me from a hangry, cranky preschooler into a beloved and cherished granddaughter. That love and care is passed down through me to my daughter as I prepare her fruit and listen to her latest curiosities and outrage. I believe love is at the center of transformation. When we love someone, we see them and accept them in all of their complexities. We listen to them and meet them where they're at. We support them by being fully present with them. As a human and a mother, I know that love is a force that can change us. And as a teacher and a teacher educator, I have centered my research and my teaching on the power of love manifested and embodied through humanizing practices in education. Humanizing practices in education recognize that we are not simply disembodied brains waiting around to be filled with facts. Instead, they acknowledge the importance of bringing our whole selves to learning environments. If love is at the center of transformation, then love, through humanizing practices, is at the center of transformative learning, creativity, and development. Take a moment, if you would, to picture your favorite teacher. For many of us, our favorite teacher met us where we were at, saw our humanity, saw our potential, and nurtured our growth and creativity academically and personally. Sounds a little like love. Great teachers bring their whole selves and invite students' whole selves, their experiences, emotions, knowledge, and identities into classrooms, knowing that we learn and grow best when we are fully engaged. We are transformed by learning in community, learning with and from one another. Teachers and teacher educators guide that process of learning by connecting new ideas to the knowledge and experiences we already have. But to do that best, they must know us and they must know themselves. Love fuels transformative practice. It motivates us to be better, to strive for better. But transformation takes time. It requires learning, practice, creativity, support, and a set of tools and skills that make the complex look simple when done by experts. As a humanizing educator, because I love my students, I must push beyond prescribed curriculum that doesn't know them, see them, or understand them. I must find creative ways to meet them where they're at and help them to grow. This means being present with them, learning alongside them, designing and adapting curriculum to enhance their development, and integrating their experiences into the classroom. And all of this requires practice in supporting students and time to develop my knowledge and skills as an educator. As importantly, it requires models of humanizing practices to aspire to. This is what humanizing teacher education and teacher learning spaces can provide. So often, future and current teachers, grounded in love, wanting to create better experiences than those they had in schools, do not have transformative models of education to aspire to. Teacher education and professional learning spaces can and must provide such models.
We must create learning environments that model the change we wish to see. I believe in the power of transformation through education, and I believe that transformation is grounded in love and humanizing practices. As a teacher of teachers, I know this requires much of me, but also that the reward is great. So I invite each of us to consider the role we can play in rehumanizing education, to make schools and schools of education places where we are seen, known, and loved, places where we can all wear our pomelo crowns proudly. Thank you.
Our final speaker for the night, Hannah Olson, fulfilling the promise of sport.
When I was a kid, sport was everything to me. When I was playing, it was my refuge, my classroom, my proving ground. And while my sore shoulders and achy knees remind me every day of the physical toll, the real legacy of my athletic career is not in my joints. It's in the creativity, the leadership, and the confidence that I carry with me every day. But here's the thing, I was lucky. I reflected deeply on my journey, and there were so many pieces in place that allowed me to thrive in sport. I had access to facilities, programming, equipment. I had a huge group of supporters, and maybe most importantly, I had some amazing coaches who created safe spaces for me to develop, push myself, challenge myself, and grow into the person and professional that I am today. So yeah, I was lucky. Luck cannot be the prerequisite when what sport has to offer is so beneficial and so good. It is well founded in the research that youth participation in sport yields a wide range of positive outcomes for kids, from enhanced physical and mental health, all the way down to the development of critical social and emotional skills. We take these kiddos from O'Day High School. I imagine they're learning a lot more than football out on that field. And my team at the Center for Leadership and Athletics, we want everybody to have access to this potential, this promise that sport has to offer. The challenge and the issue and the unfortunate truth is that millions of kids are missing out because we leave their athletic futures up to chance. 70% of kids drop out of sport by the time they're 13 years old because it's no longer fun. And why isn't it fun? Take a look to your left. Take a look to your right. It's us. It's the adults. We are the ones who are ruining it. And most often, it's coaches who are ruining it. In our nation, sport is the only youth-serving space that doesn't require specific training for the adults in charge, resulting in a core of coaches who are underprepared to work with kids. Often what this means is that even the most well-meaning folks are not equipped with the tools that they need and simply perpetuate toxic and harmful behaviors that they experienced as athletes. Think about it. We are a place and we are a nation that tolerates this poor adult behavior. In sport, we say that it's okay. We say that it's all right. We wouldn't allow a teacher to scream in a child's face for missing a math problem, or a counselor to force a kid to run laps around the school or do push-ups because they showed up late. But in sport, we say, that's okay. That's how we make champions. That's how we make people tough. Our team at the Center for Leadership and Athletics is seeking to change that by engaging in a range of coaching education initiatives that matter. We're part of a national movement to train 1 million coaches in youth-centered practices. And in the last year and some change, we've trained 12,000 coaches in Washington State in partnership with school districts and sport organizations. Yeah, let's go. Let's go. And we're doing it differently. We're pushing beyond the X's and O's, and we're giving coaches the content we know they need, but they're not getting. Topics like providing emotional safety, culture building, adolescent development, and youth voice. Shared decision-making, youth agency is a cornerstone of our work as we think about how we share power across teams. Traditional models of sport position the coach as the expert, the one who knows all of the things, the one who's in charge. If you go back in your memory bank, you can maybe imagine what that looks like to you. It could be a tracksuit, some tube socks, maybe a clipboard, a whistle, yelling, I say jump, you say how high. That control and command model does not work for youth, and so we're pushing against it. We're asking coaches to reconsider, to get creative. Hey, coach, step back, allow some space, give kids chance to make decisions, be leaders. Sport doesn't just build athletes, it builds people. And every kid should have the chance to become the resilient, confident leader that they're meant to be. Not by luck, not by chance, by design. And that's a lofty goal. It takes some confidence. It takes some creativity. It takes some leadership chops. But hey, I got that. I learned it from sport.
That's a wrap. Didn't I tell you it was going to go quickly? Did you learn something? Did you have a good time? Do you have questions ready to ask our speakers? All right, then. So I'm going to ask them to come on down here so we can give them one final round of applause, and then we're heading out to have a lovely reception and party. Please join me.